to the first summer focus of the year. I am so happy that all of you guys are here. It's so fun getting to see everyone from all of the campuses get together and see each other and fellowship with one another and ultimately worship God with one another. My name is Lindsey, and I am one of your campus pastors at TCU. Go Frogs! We've got a small but mighty crew, and maybe you've met some of them either at Winter Retreat or at Sikkim. I am definitely biased, but I think they're really great. So if you haven't met anyone from TCU, I encourage y'all to go introduce yourselves to them and let them know that I sent you. A little bit about me. I have a slide with some pictures that should come up soon. But I met my husband doing cheer camps. Crazy, right? I went to college at TCU. That is where I became a devoted disciple of Jesus through a different campus ministry that was there. I heard about Focus through William, my now husband. We got married in 2020 in my parents' front yard. I got to work with UTD Focus for 4 years, and I am convinced that I have some of the best friends in the world because of our ministry and the things that Jesus has done in my life. Me and Rhett just planted a Focus at TCU, and just this past year, and now our ministry is gaining 2 tiny little members because my husband and I are expecting twins. In September, so pray for us, please. So have any of y'all seen those TikToks that are like, oh, thank you, Tanya. The butterfly effect is crazy, because what do you mean if I didn't do this one random thing, I wouldn't have all these other things in my life? Do y'all see those? Or is it just making sure it's not me. But it's like, the butterfly effect is crazy, because what if I didn't go to this one cheer camp in 2015? Like, I wouldn't have any of these things in my life. And I really do feel that way. Looking back at my life, I see God's hand in every single little thing. Every exciting moment, every disappointment, every time I felt lonely, every time life felt abundant, all of it. And so much of my life has changed since 2015, 10 years ago when I stepped foot on a college campus for the first time. But not everything has changed. And one very important truth about life and about God has always stayed the same. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. So a little confession, I love the feeling of being in control. It's not even that I need to be in control, I just need to feel like I'm in control. I love stability. I love when things are in a routine. I thrive on a set schedule with deadlines. I love knowing what my next days and weeks and months will look like. And I honestly prefer the work and the repetition that comes with the semester over the freedom and flexibility that comes with summer and winter breaks. And I don't mind change, but only when I've planned for the change. Has anyone taken the Strengths Finder? Okay, it's kind of like a personality test where there's 34 different strengths, and they rank them based off of, the information that you give them. And so out of 34 possible strengths, my 34th strength is adaptability. And that doesn't mean it's a weakness, is what Mandy told me. It's just my last strength. However, I am in a place in my life where I am very unsure of what the upcoming months and years will look like. Like I mentioned before, Rhett and I planted this new ministry, and there's a lot of adapting that comes with that. It's a lot of trial and error and what works works and what doesn't. Lots of change there. I don't know how to be a mom to one child, and so I'm gonna have to learn how to do that to two children at the same time. At the time of writing this sermon, my husband and I's apartment lease was gonna be up in like 2 weeks, and we had not yet found a place to live. So there are so many question marks in life. And mind you, my circumstances are not bad. They're, in fact, very, very good, but they do feel unstable. And when things feel uncertain, I tend to associate that with a lack of peace. And I will do anything in my power to bring peace back into the picture. And so for me, sometimes that looks like bulldozing my way through life, finding the first answer I can find that at least just gives me the appearance of something stable to stand on. And I'm sure some of you have felt unsure of what your next steps in life are what they might be. I know everyone here has experienced the fear of the unknown of some kind, right? And maybe you don't know what you're going to major in. Or maybe you don't know who your roommates will be next semester, or you don't know where you're going to transfer to. You don't know if your parents are going to stay together. You don't know what life after graduation will look like, or if a close friend or family member will be healed from cancer. And so what do you try to grab onto to make life feel certain or stable? What do you grab onto? I think a lot of us think, if I could just fill in the blank, then I would feel so much better. If I could just cross things off my to-do list, then I would feel better about what I got going on this week. If I could just forget what's going on, then I would feel okay. If I could just get advice from this friend or mentor, it'll all be good. If I could just read a book about how to fix my problems, hear back from the doctor finally. What is that for you? What do you fill in the blank? What brings you peace of mind? Thankfully, God has given us a very important truth about life and about himself that we can cling to in the midst of the chaos and the changing nature of life. And this ancient story about a man from many, many years ago makes us ask the question, is God your first resource or your last resort? Is God your first resource or your last resort? Do you actually trust God? There are so many things we grasp onto that try to compete with the peace that only God's presence can bring. And what I hope to show you tonight is that nothing can compare to the reliable and the good and the empowering presence of God. And I know some of you are sitting here tonight with really awful stuff going on. There is sickness and cancer and divorce and abuse and death and anxiety and depression going on. And I wish so badly that I could just take those things from your life. And so it might be frustrating just sitting here thinking or hearing me say, just rely on God's presence. And if we're being honest with ourselves, maybe a cure for cancer seems more appealing than God's presence. But I wouldn't say something that sounds so simple and potentially naive if I didn't believe it with every fiber of my being, with my whole heart. And this truth about life and about God is something, though I believe it, I often revolt against it. I often think I need so many different things to make me feel better and to help me out. But God has been showing me that he has already given us what we need. He's given us himself. And what Moses learns about God in Exodus 3 is a lesson that we need to learn over and over and over again. And so throughout tonight, I encourage you to ask yourself, is God your first resource or your last resort? So let me set the scene for you. Israel, God's chosen nation, is enslaved in Egypt, and they have been for years. And there was this man named Moses. He was tending to his father-in-law's flock, and he noticed that there was this bush that was on fire, but it was not burning up. And so Moses thought to himself, well, I've got to take a closer look at this because this is not normal. And so when he gets to the bush, God starts speaking from it, which is also not normal. And God says, Moses, Moses. And Moses says, yes, here I am. And then God says, do not come any closer. Take off your sandals, for where you are standing is holy ground. And then God said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. I have seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them up out of that land into a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey. And now the cries of the Israelites have reached me, and I have seen the ways that the Egyptians are oppressing them. So now go. I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. Okay, pause. So far, we've learned a few things about God, and so has Moses. We've learned that he has been the God of all of Moses' forefathers. For generations, he's been faithful to Moses' family. That's one thing. The second, we know that he intimately knows the needs of his people, and he's heard their cries. And then we know that he's willing to do something about it. And we learn that he is willing to send Moses out to do a very scary task. Have any of you guys looked at the path ahead of you and asked, oh, how the heck am I going to get through this? Me too. Let's keep going. Moses responds to God by saying, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? And what God says here is very important. He doesn't say, here's a book that will be really helpful. Or, have you made your ideal time picture yet? Or, have you made up your dream board to help you visualize your goals? Or, why don't you work on these other skills first and then you should be good to go? God says, I will be with you. Moses asked, who am I to go to Pharaoh? And God says, I will be with you. Isn't that so good and so frustrating? God didn't first give Moses a script to practice for when he's speaking to Pharaoh. He gave Moses himself, the promise of his presence. And that's what he does for us as well, every single day. So let me give you a look into my heart when I first started thinking about this promise and working on this sermon. There were three things that were kind of stressing me out. The first one is I had an important doctor's appointment coming up, and I hate going to the we will walk through the darkest valley. The shepherd here did not find a detour. And sometimes I don't think God's presence sounds satisfactory to us, because when we are walking through the darkest valley, but the scriptures show us that we can build our life on the fact that God is with us. And the tension here is that one day it will be all okay. There will be one day with no more tears or mourning and crying and death and dying and pain. God is making all things new. But in the meantime, He is with us. And that is worth building your life on. When you're getting your test results, no matter what they are, God is with you. And when you're crying, wondering if He hears you, God is with you. And when you're celebrating the big wins of life, God is with you. And when your circumstances change over and over and over again, God's presence does not change. He is with you. So let that be a source of comfort and stability to you guys. Another one of the reasons why God's presence ought to be our refuge and our first resource is that it's reliable. He's consistent. And what is so neat about God that I'm learning, this fact that He is always with us, is woven into every bit of who He is. In any way we know and experience God, one of the most fundamental truths about Him is that He is near and He is with us. So we have God the Father. He is the God of our fathers, the God of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. He's the one, who initially promised us that He will be with us forever. God set about this story of reconciliation, and for thousands of years, God has been making promises, and thousands of years He's been keeping them. And He promised to make a great nation, He promised a Messiah, and He promised to pour out His Spirit. And He has kept those promises. Will you trust Him? And then we get introduced to Jesus, the Son. And one of the first things we learn about Him is that He will be called Emmanuel, which means God with us. God took on flesh to be with us. Jesus walked this very same earth alongside very real people. The very nature of who God is has shown us that God is with us. And then we have the Spirit. He is a gift that Jesus has promised. Jesus described the Spirit like this. He says, "And I will ask the Father, and He will give you another advocate to be with you forever, the Spirit of truth. The world cannot receive Him because it neither sees Him nor knows Him, but you do know Him, for He abides with you and will be in you." The Spirit is our advocate, and He abides in us and dwells in us. And there is nothing more intimate and present than that. The very essence of who God is is God with us. This promise is woven into every fiber of his being. And I hope you begin to believe and experience that there is no greater source of comfort than that. So this summer, we are going through a series on the promises of God. And these are promises that we get to cling to and remember when we're facing fear and trials and uncertainty. And I know you guys know this, but this generation is riddled with fear. And what we fear reveals what we actually believe. And so are you worried that if you don't get the internship, your life won't work out according to plan? Or if this date doesn't work out, you'll be lonely for the rest of your life. If you get the bad grade, you won't ever measure up much. If you can't force yourself to quit the bad habit, you'll never be fully restored. If the doctor gives you the bad news you've been dreading, there is no hope. What are you afraid of? And how do those fears reveal what you actually believe in? A lot of us claim to believe in God, and that is great. But James tells us that even the demons believe that and shudder. So when the rubber meets the road and things don't work out the way you initially planned, let's stop functioning like atheists. Let's act like we're friends of God, because that is true, and that is an offer that he is already extending you. Let's live like God, our friend, our defender, our protector, our hope, our creator, is with us. Who can stand against us? Is that God your first resource or your last resort? As a ministry and as pastors, we're asking the question, what do we do with this fear? Our pastors cannot fix your problems for you. Your therapist can't do that. Joe Rogan's podcast will not lead you to the fullness of life. Numbing the pain by being busy or staying entertained will never truly make anyone happy. There's not enough media in the world that can drown out all of your fears. Y'all are all facing very real, scary stuff. The perfect job will not make you feel less purposeless. Being a part of the big, cool friend group will not make you less insecure. All of the ways that we've tried to seek out purpose and joy and peace and comfort in our lives have not worked, right? And they will not magically start working the next time we try. We have to cling to God's promises. And so each of the following promises for the rest of the summer will address more specific fears. And I hope it ministers to you guys. But I want this first promise we look at, the promise that God will be with us no matter what we're facing, to lay the foundation for the rest of the summer. When you're facing fear in general, let this promise be your first resource, not your last resort. Nothing can compete with the reliability and the goodness of God's presence. It has no rival, and it is already being offered to you. And if that doesn't sound like good news to you, my encouragement is just to go make space in your life to experience God and get to know him more. And it might feel vulnerable, because what if you don't feel anything? Or what if nothing changes? But I fully trust that God will show up, because he is already there, and that is who he is. My job isn't just to teach you cool stuff. It's not to impress you. It's just to point you to God. And so that's what I hope to do. So go get to know him. He alone can work through your fear, and he alone is who you need. And my greatest hope for you guys is that you would see just how wide and long and high and deep is God's love for you, and how his unchanging presence and character is the only thing you can depend on. So go be with the God who is with you. Even if you don't feel it, he is near. Take away all of those quick fixes you tend to rely on. please stop walking around with AirPods in your ears to make you feel more comfortable. It's a pet peeve. Take out the AirPods. And ask God to show you his presence. He is walking right alongside you. Stop asking your Corfas or mentors to fix your problems before you go to your Father who loves you and is always near. Seek him first. He is already there and he intimately knows your needs. Stop busying yourselves to make yourself feel more accomplished or just to drown out all of the anxieties. Cast your anxieties on him, for he cares for you. So decide now, will you be a friend of God? Will you make him your first resource? Or will you settle for the solution that you've created? Your own little golden calf, a solution that seems to be good enough right now, crafted the way you like, comfortable enough for you to deal with and handle, but completely useless to save you. Let the God of the universe show up for you, and don't make him your last resort. Worship team, y'all can come up. It's kind of hard to imagine God's never changing, but always constant and reliable and empowering presence because we don't experience that much with our earthly relationships. There are some flaky people out there. And it kind of makes me think, it's like how people have a hard time resonating with the imagery of God being a father because they haven't gotten to experience that on this side of heaven. But imagine we become a community that demonstrates the reliability of God. What if we made people's belief in God that much more real just by being present? We've talked about how we can always count on God's presence in the good and in the bad. But can your friends always count on you? Can your core always count on you? Who do you want to show God's faithfulness to? So as we reflect on God's promises for the rest of the summer, I really do pray it touches your lives and your hearts and it impacts the way you view him. But I also hope it makes an impact on the way you view your relationship to his people. So as image bearers of the promise-making and promise-keeping God, let's go reflect that kind of presence and reliability to the rest of the world. I am going to pray for us, and then we can continue worshiping. God, thank you so much for who you are, for being near and present and with us always. And I just pray that you would open our eyes to the ways that you've been working in our lives, and that we would first go to you and first assure ourselves of your presence and your goodness to us, and that will help us get through all of the different things that you're calling us to. And in your name I pray, amen.